Chapter 871. No one dared to move. Jiang Hao's arrival surprised the three individuals. Lu Mantian, who was originally eating spirit stones, paused, and the spirit stone in his hand fell to the ground. He picked up the spirit stones bitterly. The old man suddenly stood up. Purple energy. If he was right, then this person was extraordinary. The middle-aged man looked shocked. Many things had been as he had expected, but the appearance of the fierce creature had changed all that. He couldn't guess what the situation would turn into. This person might be the biggest variable in recent developments. Jiang Hao stepped to the edge of the cliff. He was surprised by the three people around him. Their stares made him nervous. To make sure everything went smoothly, he activated a trace of purple energy to intimidate the three individuals. Luckily, it seemed to work. Among the three, Lu Mantian surprised Jiang Hao the most. How could a return to Void Realm cultivator compete for the sage's pages? There was only one possibility. He might not really be in the return to Void Realm. His true strength was immeasurable. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, he always treated everyone kindly. Otherwise, it would have been disastrous. So, it's you again, Lu Mantian said with a bitter smile. I always found it strange why I kept running into you. Jiang Hao looked at him. He was confused. When did you find out about me? Lu Mantian asked. Jiang Hao chuckled. Senior, you think I'm here for you. Are you here to find me? Lu Mantian asked cautiously. Jiang Hao shook his head. Did you know it was me from the beginning? Lu Mantian asked. I don't even know who you are. Jiang Hao could only pretend not to know. I have only one question. And then I will leave. Well, if you are here to kill me, I have nothing much to say, said Lu Mantian. Jiang Hao sighed. He had been waiting for Lu Mantian to reveal his identity. The two people beside them were also curious. They didn't know anything about these two, but they listened quietly. Sometimes, listening was all it took to find out everything. Sure. Ask away, Jiang Hao said. Lu Mantian hesitated. Are you, really Jiyu Jin? The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes and looked at Jiang Hao in disbelief. Jiyu Jin? How is that possible? The old man was also shocked. Jiang Hao looked at Lu Mantian. He never expected him to ask that. If it was any other time, Jiang Hao would have admitted truthfully. But things were now complicated because of the purple energy. Otherwise, he could have said that Jing and Jiyu Jin were acquainted. What was needed right now wasn't to clear up everything but to make it more confusing. Jiyu Jin's identity sometimes served as a layer of protection. Under Lu Mantian's tense gaze, Jiang Hao shook his head. I just have some connection to him. So, you're not Jiyu Jin? Lu Mantian asked again. Jiang Hao smiled. We agreed on only one question. Lu Mantian was taken aback. He then turned and left. If the person behind him wanted to attack, he had nothing to say. But how would Jiang Hao dare to make a move? A person who was related to Jiyu Jin was not someone he could mess with. If he made a move, his identity would be revealed. And that wouldn't be good for Sage's pages. Now, he had the power of purple energy and the blessing of Jiyu Jin. So, Lu Mantian couldn't touch him. There was no one daring to make a move against him. Perhaps obtaining the Sage's pages would be easy. After Lu Mantian left, there were three groups left on the scene. I am Shan Qinghe, the first master of the Heavenly Tower. We heard about your contribution. It's truly astonishing, said Shan Qinghe with a smile. The first master of Heavenly Tower? Jiang Hao hadn't expected to meet him here. The old man beside him was also the same. It was impossible to even guess how powerful they were. I am Ying Feiyu from the Heavenly Tower, Ying Feiyu said politely. Heavenly Tower? Jiang Hao thought for a moment and realized that people from the east had all gathered here. It made sense. After all, they were from overseas. I am Jiyu, Jiang Hao said calmly. He still didn't reveal his full name. In the present situation, it was best to keep these people guessing. This way, his chances of winning would be higher. Later, he couldn't make a move himself, or problems would arise. It depended on whether Hong Yuye would attempt to compete too. At that moment, under the gentian cliff, there was a continuous surge of spiritual energy as if there were endless hidden currents below. Do you know the origin of the gentian cliff? Asked Shan Qinghe. Wasn't there once a powerful individual who attained enlightenment here? Asked Ying Feiyu. That's just a common rumor. Shan Qinghe shook his head. According to records, the Dragon Clan once established a dragon's nest in the west. The dragon's nest was originally on the surface of mountains and rivers, but later, it went through some transformation. The dragon's nest went underground after that. When the mountains stabilized, it became the current gentian cliff. Ying Feiyu was quite surprised. Although Jiang Hao showed no emotion on his face, he was surprised too. The area beneath the gentian cliff was the dragon's nest. It might be related to Xiao Li. He wanted to go down and take a look, but with so many people around, he couldn't just rush away. The first master of Heavenly Tower also dared not act recklessly. The fact of the dragon's nest was hard to verify. Dragon's nest? Ying Feiyu asked curiously. Why not go down and take a look? Shan Qinghe shook his head. Only those who have the fortune of the West or are of the Dragon Clan can enter it. At present, it seems that there are only 4 people who can go down. Those were the 4 people who obtained the jade pendant. Jiang Hao lowered his head. He couldn't see anything. He had no intention of going down. If possible, he wanted to bring Xiao Li here. Unfortunately, it was too far away. He couldn't bring her here, even with the 9 golden rings. Hong Yuye had mentioned before that one had to be prepared to face danger when teleporting to faraway places. Although Xiao Li was a member of the Dragon Clan, she was ultimately just a young dragon. After that, no one spoke. Jiang Hao remained calm. The dragon's nest didn't tempt him much. If it weren't for Xiao Li, he wouldn't even bother. If it involved legendary races, there must be dangers that a small cultivator like him couldn't be involved in. As time passed, Jiang Hao began to feel that something was trying to break free. Suddenly, he was curious. Was there a connection between the sage's pages and the Dragon Clan? Otherwise, why would they appear here? Just as he was thinking about it, there was a sound of hidden currents. It sounded like a surging sea. Although he didn't see anything, images formed in his mind. The sea roared, and something emerged from the endless waves. Then, it rushed toward the sky. Boom! Golden light flashed and soared into the sky. The 4 people looked up. Shan Qinghe and the others were ready to fight it. However, when they saw Jiang Hao standing in place, they chose not to fight. They also waited. Chapter 872. Contents of the sage's pages. The golden light shimmered, but it didn't bring about any change. Apart from the sound, there was nothing else. The sky was clear, the wind was gentle, and the sun was bright. The golden light was soft. If people didn't know it was the sage's pages, those passing by wouldn't even glance at it. After a short time, the light dissipated. A white, metallic page appeared in midair. None of the 3 people stepped forward. Jiang Hao dared not make a move either. The other 2 hesitated. They wanted to act, but they were reluctant to do so when they saw Jiang Hao standing still. They didn't dare to act, especially after seeing the appearance of the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl and the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl. Although they knew that those pearls wouldn't explode anymore, they were still fearful. There was no need to make a fool of oneself. After all, everyone was here just to see the sage's pages. Things could be resolved peacefully. Friend, you first. Shan Qinghe looked at Jiang Hao. Indeed, friend Jiyu, you should go first, said Ying Feiyu. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. If not for the appearance of the Great Vortex, things might not have gone so smoothly. Without hesitation, he made a gesture, and the sage's places flew toward him. It landed in his hands. At that moment, texts began to appear on the blank pages. Not only Jiang Hao but also Hong Yuye was curious about the contents of the page. As the text appeared, Jiang Hao read it. The heavens reward those who work hard. That was the first line. Looking further down, Jiang Hao saw the second line, but he couldn't read it. The same happened with the third line. When he looked again, he found that all the words had disappeared. Jiang Hao looked at the people around him with some surprise. The others looked calm. How do you feel, friend Jiyu? Shan Qinghe curiously asked. Jiang Hao tossed the pages to Shan Qinghe. Senior, take a look, and you'll know. The others sighed in relief. It would indeed be troublesome if it turned out to be nothing. After a short time, Shan Qinghe nodded and then threw the page to Ying Feiyu. Both of them looked at Ying Feiyu to see his reaction. However, the result disappointed Jiang Hao. At that moment, Ying Feiyu looked at the text and nodded. He seemed to be deep in thought. Finally, he handed the page to Jiang Hao. Thanks, friend Jiyu. Since I have finished reading the contents, I won't hold on to it for longer than necessary. With that, he turned and left. Well, I won't linger either. This trip was indeed successful, Shan Qinghe said with a smile. Before leaving, he turned to Jiang Hao. If you ever come overseas, you can visit Heavenly Tower. I'll express my hospitality in gratitude. As soon as he finished speaking, Shan Qinghe stepped out and disappeared. Jiang Hao was quite puzzled. Did these people really understand the contents of the page, or were they just pretending? Anyway, he remembered only one phrase: the heavens reward those who work hard. Fortunately, the pages were in his hands, and he could appraise it. Senior, what was your impression? Jiang Hao asked. What did you see? Hong Yuye looked up and asked. After explaining everything, Jiang Hao looked at her and waited for her response. Hong Yuye lowered her head in thought but didn't speak. After a moment, Hong Yuye said, "This time, the sage's pages are a bit strange." Strange? Jiang Hao asked. But there was no response. It seemed he had to go back and appraise it himself. What came after the one phrase that he could read? Usually, the ancient pages had a record of something. Maybe about the heavenly fate misfortune pearl or earth extreme silent pearl. But he couldn't read anything else after the first sentence. He didn't even understand what it meant. Jiang Hao asked about Lu Mantian. Senior, do you know who he is? Hong Yuye glanced at him strangely and left. He wondered who would be afraid of him that much. He had only ever met the corpse in the vortex. Jiang Hao broke into a cold sweat. Senior, is he the avatar of that corpse? Jiang Hao asked. This one is alive, Hong Yuye said calmly. You mean revived? Jiang Hao didn't understand. It's different, but such people always have some means, unknown to others, Hong Yuye said indifferently. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he didn't have the habit of offending people for nothing. Otherwise, Lu Mantian would have killed him. Jiang Hao didn't rush back. Instead, he planned to find a place to wipe off the rust on the magical treasures. Jiang Hao suddenly realized why the treasures were so rusty. It meant that the treasures might be from someone's grave. It turned out they belonged to the corpses. A few days later, Jiang Hao successfully found the city. After that, many people discussed the phenomenon of the twin suns. Many people had witnessed that phenomenon. It is said that the sage's pages manifested right then, said someone. I have a good friend who heard people from the academy saying so. Really? Someone else asked. Why would I deceive you? Asked the person. My friend is at the peak of his strength, and he is legendary. If it were false, how could the army of corpses retreat? The retreat of the army of corpses was something everyone had witnessed. It might be true that the sages might have intervened. Jiang Hao listened. He felt somewhat embarrassed. The reality was far from being that impressive. After finding an inn to stay in, Jiang Hao hid in his room and took out the rusty treasures. He began to wipe them. He didn't know how many blue bubbles he would get. This trip turned out to be profitable. More importantly, he had gained a deeper understanding of the realms. This was crucial for future developments, especially for an immortal. After understanding the realms, he gained a bit of clarity about everything. It seemed like the mists had dissipated. The benefits given to him by the West were immeasurable. Going to the south? Chu Jie was surprised. Yeah. It's safer to go to the south, at least more than the West, said Baizhu. They were currently in a village. Baizhu had rented a place. She was taking care of Chu Jie at least until she healed. I can't go to the south. Chu Jie shook her head. Why? Is there something wrong there? Baizhu asked. Well, there's something not right. I'm from the south. There's an important person in the south. If I go there and meet them, it won't be good, said Chu. Baizhu was surprised. Don't you want to see them? Chu Jie shook her head. No. It's just that he doesn't want to see me now. It's not the right time to meet him. Why? Baizhu asked. Chu Jie thought for a moment. I think he still needs time, so I can't go. Otherwise, he might not have enough time. The world is small. I might run into him there. Baizhu was amazed. Who could mean so much to someone at the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment realm? It seemed like they were of the same age. Could someone really be compared to someone with Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment? In Baizhu's opinion, even the Grand Earth Emperor was no match for her. Chapter 873, Appraising the Sage's Pages. This time, the treasures were not as precious as before. The first time he bought them, there was a sword embryo, but this time there was nothing of that level. However, they weren't ordinary either. There were a total of 7 treasures. The shield and armor were the largest and were the most difficult to clean. When wiping the shield, some white bubbles fell out. Strength +1, spirit +1, he was halfway through wiping but found no blue bubbles. Fortunately, when he was almost done, 1 blue bubble appeared. Lifeblood +1, cultivation +1, he got 4 blue bubbles from the shield. The gains weren't too bad. Next was the long sword. There was a hint of sword intent there, and he could try to activate the sword embryo. This time, he got 3 blue bubbles. He wiped the remaining 5 treasures. There were no surprises this time. In total, he got 18 bubbles. He had wiped 7 treasures and gotten 18 bubbles. It wasn't as many as last time, but it was still great. After that, Jiang Hao looked at his interface. Name, Jiang Hao, age, 38, cultivation realm, early stage of the Immortal Ascension platform, cultivation method, Heavenly Sound 100 revolutions, Hongmeng Heart Sutra, divine ability, 9 revolutions death substitution, unique, daily appraisal, clear and pure heart, reappearance of hidden spirit, divine might, revival of withered tree, heavenly cauldron, indestructible Vaja, lifeblood, 82-100, can be cultivated, cultivation, 8100, can be cultivated, divine abilities, 2/3. Cannot be obtained. Jiang Hao felt quite sentimental. He was already at 80 points. He wasn't that far from advancing to the next stage. He had advanced to the early stage of the Immortal Ascension platform at the age of 36. That was 2 years ago. It had taken him 2 years to reach this stage. It was quite difficult to advance. Jiang Hao took out the sage's pages. It was time to appraise them. He activated his divine ability. Ancient Sage's Pages, the mark of the era. It is interwoven by karma and records the most remarkable things in this era. It will affect the progress of heaven and earth. The contents of this page have been taken away. The karmic aura is slow, so it's difficult to pry into the contents of the pages. Jiang Hao was somewhat surprised. What does it mean taken away? The Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment had already appeared, so what remarkable thing had yet to happen? What would be the most outstanding thing in this era, then? The heavens reward those who work hard. Jiang Hao remembered the first sentence. He shook his head. He didn't understand what was going on. If the contents of the page were difficult to peer into, did the first master of the Heavenly Tower and the others really see it? Jiang Hao didn't know. Even if it meant it was difficult to peer into, it might still be possible. Perhaps he could peer into the content. With his current knowledge, he couldn't see anything yet. Jiang Hao closed his eyes and began to refine his cultivation. He decided to sell some items tomorrow and then return. The trip had been very fruitful. Early the next morning, Jiang Hao received a message on the stone tablet. There was a gathering tonight. It seemed that Senior Dan Yuan was very well informed. At noon, he went to the city's largest treasure store. "What treasures do you want, fellow disciple?" asked the woman at the counter. Jiang Hao calmly said, "I'm here to sell treasures." "Sorry, we don't." Before she could finish her sentence, Jiang Hao's return to Void Realm aura manifested. The woman, who was only at the Golden Core realm, felt terrified. She quickly said, "Please come inside, Senior." Jiang Hao met a strong expert at the return to Void Realm inside. Jiang Hao released the Immortal Ascension platform aura and suppressed the return to Void aura. Soon, the person addressed him politely and asked what he wanted to sell. The treasures were extraordinary, so Jiang Hao had to find someone with a high cultivation realm. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to sell them at a good price. Firstly, Jiang Hao sold 10,000 spirit swords. He made a profit of 40,000 spirit stones. After that, Jiang Hao bought the first set of treasures he purchased and the 2 other special treasures. He sold them for a total of 150,000 spirit stones. He now had 200,000 spirit stones. Suddenly, he was wealthy again. It seemed that Lu Mantian had really been his benefactor. He now had a sword embryo, shield, long sword, 2 gold rings, and a robe that needed to be sold. If he could sell them all, he would get a lot of spirit stones. However, these treasures were damaged, and he needed to repair them before selling them. "Do you repair magical treasures here?" Jiang Hao asked. "Of course." The middle-aged man nodded. Jiang Hao handed the robe to him and asked if it could be repaired. After inspecting it, the man said, "I can do a simple repair, but a complete restoration of this robe would be very challenging." Jiang Hao took out 2 gold rings and asked the same question. The cost of repairing the 3 treasures would be about 20,000 spirit stones. The shield needed to be completely rebuilt. Rebuilding can be very expensive. The starting rate is 100,000 spirit stones and will take 3 months, said the man. Jiang Hao sighed. It was not only expensive but also time-consuming. The pickaxe could still be used. He decided to buy a new one if it got damaged. It shouldn't cost too many spirit stones. Jiang Hao returned to the inn. His journey and purpose in the West were at an end. He had done everything that needed to be done. It had been an adventure without much risk. He had gained quite a lot as well. He had obtained many bubbles, the sage's pages, and treasures. Senior. Jiang Hao knocked on Hong Yuye's door. She didn't respond. He pushed open the door. He saw Hong Yuye sitting by the window. She was looking out and was lost in thought. Jiang Hao walked to her and looked outside the window. He didn't see anything striking. "Are you heading back?" Hong Yuye asked. "Yes." Jiang Hao nodded. "Let's go then." Hong Yuye stood up. Jiang Hao looked at her and nodded. He didn't know how she intended to go back. After hesitating for a moment, he reached out and tried to take her hand. Hong Yuye looked at him carefully and extended her hand in response. The 2 disappeared on the spot. Jiang Hao had already paid for the room in full. So, it would be no trouble for the innkeeper. No news at all. Jing Dajiang sighed. He wanted to find that person, but he couldn't find him anywhere. It was as if he had disappeared from the world entirely. The chef of the noodle shop is back at the shop. She said the special fortune has disappeared, and the merging of the ancient and modern worlds is at an end. She also said that Jiyu Jin's trace has disappeared completely, said the bearded old man. Jing Dajiang felt quite regretful. He felt like he should have asked the questions when he had the chance. He had assumed they would meet again. Who knew the person would be gone without even a goodbye in the end? It might be another 100 or 1,000 years before they met again. Unfortunately, it was a farewell without warning. Chapter 874. I'm not going to the Heavenly Note Sect. In the Heavenly Note Sect, 2 figures appeared in the wooden house that was Jiang Hao's place. It was Jiang Hao and Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao immediately let go of Hong Yuye's hand. He left a ring in the western region. It was covered with Hong Yuye's power, so it could be left there for now. It was far away, so it was convenient to leave it there. However, he was short of golden rings. He had a total of 8 subrings and 1 main ring. 1 for the courtyard, 1 for Xiao Li, another for Spirit Beast, 1 for the corpse realm, 1 for Hong Yuye, 1 for the western region, and 1 that he kept with himself. That accounted for 6 of the rings. He only had 2 that he could use. He needed to think about it carefully, especially when using it to kill someone. It wouldn't be as easy. Go prepare the bath, said Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao didn't dare to hesitate. After preparing the bath, Hong Yuye entered it. Jiang Hao sat at the door. He had made sure everything was neat. It seemed that Xiao Li had cleaned it in his absence. In the courtyard, he found that the peach tree had already borne fruit. Quite a few of the fruits were gone. He plucked one and tasted it. It was even sweeter than before. After so many incarnations, the only change in the fruit was its sweetness. There were almost no other changes. It still grew like an ordinary fruit tree. Time passed quickly, and midnight approached. Jiang Hao sat in the courtyard and waited for the gathering to begin. The call for gathering meant something important was going to happen or had already happened. At midnight, Jiang Hao entered the public area. He had been here many times, but it felt incredible every time. He needed to find the mastermind behind the stone tablets. That was what Hong Yuye was after. So far, there were no clues. Jiang Hao noticed that Zhong wasn't there this time. She might be advancing to another realm. It was evident that breaking through to the Immortal Ascension platform was no joke. It was unfortunate for those who had missed their opportunity before. Not everyone could open the path to immortality. The situation with Shang An had been extraordinary. For a while, the number of people at the gathering returned to what it was before Zhong. Greetings, Senior. The four people bowed to Senior Dan Yuan. Any issues with your cultivation? Dan Yuan asked. No one spoke. Zhong had officially embarked on the path to immortality. Gui asked, did Zhong succeed? Xing and Liu were also very curious. After all, they were all partners in this group. They were quite concerned for each other. Dan Yuan smiled. Zhong has passed the most difficult period. It is unlikely that there will be any accidents. Everyone was surprised. There was suddenly a lot of pressure. Although no one explicitly mentioned their cultivation realm, they assumed they were at a similar level. But now, since one of them was advancing to the Immortal Ascension platform, the others felt the pressure. Jiang Hao was not under much pressure. He always kept things friendly with everyone. He didn't interact with them much and kept himself mysterious. What he lacked most now was time. After going out once, he found that his current cultivation realm was still not enough in certain situations. It was better to stay in the Heavenly Note sect. The sage's pages are gone, so the task is at an end, said Dan Yuan. He looked at Xing. The thing you asked for is at the Genshin Cliff. If you need anything else, you only need to ask. Xing hesitated for a moment and decided to wait a bit longer. Dan Yuan had no objections. Later, he asked about Old Man Corpse C. However, no one in the gathering knew his location. After the transaction with Senior Dan Yuan ended, Gui spoke up. I don't have anything in particular. Do any of you have something to discuss? I've finished my transaction with Liu and currently have nothing on my plate, Xing said. Liu shook his head. He knew that Gui wanted to talk about other matters, and he felt the same way too. They needed to understand what had happened in the Western region first. Since there was no more trade to do, they went straight into casual conversation. Gui said, did you all witness that big battle? The one with the Heavenly Dao Foundation establishment was defeated and she looked at Jing. Liu did the same. Xing was curious. What exactly happened? I'm in the east, and I don't really understand what happened. Later, the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl and the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl appeared. It entered the vortex of the west. It occupied the entire western sky. The true dragons turned into twin suns and covered the entire sky, said Gui. Xing was surprised. The western region was truly in danger this time. Then he looked at Jing. He had both the pearls. Jing finally said, I am acting on someone else's behalf. Everyone was surprised. The information was overwhelming. Gui thought for a moment. Do you know Jiu Jin? Jiang Hao didn't respond. I heard the corpse ended up dead, said Gui. He still has an avatar. Jiang Hao's voice was low. Letting these people know about the avatar would give Lu Mantian something to deal with. It would create problems later. Surpassing that enemy wasn't possible in the near future. Gui and others took note of it. It would be useful to see that information. They didn't know who it was, and it was not easy to ask Jing. If Zhong were here, she would definitely ask about it. At this point, Dan Yuan said, Jing, do you know who the avatar is? Lu Mantian, Jiang Hao said. He had been waiting for someone to ask the question. Gui disappointed him this time by not asking the most important question. When Senior Dan Yuan asked if he had any questions, Jiang Hao shook his head. Xing thought for a moment. Who finally obtained the sage's pages? It's with me, said Jing. Gui and others were surprised. Why did everything seem to be with Jing? But when they thought about it, it made sense that Jing was involved. He had 2 deadly pearls on him, after all. Jing, can you tell us what was in the pages? Xing asked. You can also state what kind of reward you need in advance. The gathering was naturally a place for trade. Anything could be traded. However, Jiang Hao shook his head. If you want to see it, you can have it. Xing thought for a moment and looked at Gui. The latter looked puzzled. She didn't want to go to the Heavenly Note sect. Chapter 875. Is it for Xiao Li? Gui, are you going back to the south? Xing asked. It would take too long to travel from east to south. It was better not to go. Gui, on the other hand, was from the south. It would be much more convenient for her to go to the south. Jing, you are still in the west, right? Liu asked. Jiang Hao shook his head. I have already left the west. He did not say where he was. As for the sage's pages, it remained in Jiang Hao's hands in the Heavenly Note sect. The reason why Xing sought out Gui was because of that. Only Gui had traded with Jiang Hao before, so it was the most convenient. Do you want me to bring it directly to the east? Gui asked. She didn't want to go to the Heavenly Note sect, but she didn't want to refuse. The rewards usually were good for these kinds of jobs. She might even be able to see the contents of the sage's pages for free. Secondly, she could get many benefits from it. This kind of opportunity was rare. If Jing is willing, you can just tell me the contents of the pages, said Xing. Jiang Hao didn't mind. Sure. He nodded. Gui could find Jiang Hao in the Heavenly Note sect. Gui was curious about who possessed the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl this time. Being able to see the contents of the sage's pages was still a pleasant surprise. What reward do you want, Gui? Xing asked. Another set of the heavenly bestowed technique from the Heavenly Spirit tribe, Gui said. Xing nodded. He asked Jiang Hao what he needed. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Hao said, let's discuss it next time. He didn't have anything he wanted right now. Moreover, he had to wait until the trade was complete. There was still plenty of time, and there was no rush. Jiang Hao said, there might be a dragon's nest beneath the gentian cliff. The others were surprised, especially Liu. He had gone to the west for the dragon's nest. He had given up and left, but unexpectedly, he had learned about the location. But to go down, you need someone with the Jade Pendant of Fortune or a member of the Dragon Clan, Jiang Hao said. Liu looked at Gui. Do you have a way to go down? I want to obtain a book from the dragon's nest. I might. Gui nodded. What do you want in exchange? Liu asked. All information about the Heavenly Spirit tribe. The more detailed, the better, Gui said. Since she was going to the Heavenly Spirit tribe, she needed all the information she could get. Okay. I'll get it for you. Liu nodded. Jiang Hao was surprised that there were actually 2 people asking about the Heavenly Spirit tribe. The only reason he had disclosed the information was to see if someone could go down and take a look. The incident shocked everyone in the West. They were all discussing it. After the discussion, the gathering was at an end. Jiang Hao opened his eyes in the courtyard. He took out a book to record the event. The task of the sage's pages was complete. The remaining task was to find out about Old Man Corpse C. He had a pending reward from Xing for the sage's pages. Gui might arrive in the sect in a few years. Liu seemed quite interested in the information about the dragon's nest. He asked Gui to check too. There wasn't much else worth recording. In theory, Zhong also owed him a reward. Unfortunately, she was in the process of advancement, and it was uncertain when that would end. After putting away the pen and books, Jiang Hao sighed. The affairs in the West were considered complete. It had little to do with him. The dragon's nest and the sage's pages needed time to reveal their answers. There was no need to pay too much attention to them right now. In the days to come, he would focus on living an ordinary life in the sect. He wanted to take care of the spirit herb garden during the day, make talismans, and study the Nameless Manual at night. This time, he had a deep understanding of the realms, so he could help Lin Ji and Cheng Chou. As for Chu Chuan, he had already left the mountain. His path was bound to be extraordinary, so he would figure it out on his own. It was unknown what he would achieve. Besides, it would be impossible for him to reach the East in just a few hundred years. In a few years, the one with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment would have become an immortal. Moreover, she would become someone with great fortune. Surpassing someone like that was nearly impossible. The chances available to normal cultivators, the things they could perceive, and the opportunities they could encounter in the world were limited. But the one with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment was born with talent and gift. No matter how many opportunities one had, it was impossible to surpass her. Zhong, for example, was at least 400 to 500 years old. Chu Chuan's talent and opportunities were far less than others. For him to become an immortal, it would take at least 700 to 800 years or even 1,000 years. On the other hand, someone like Chu Jie with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment would only need a little over 200 years at most. Chu Chuan's journey would be very difficult. If he could meet him during the next trip, it would be good to check in on him. Jiang Hao picked a peach and took a bite. "Is it sweet?" asked a sudden voice from behind. Jiang Hao quickly turned to see Hong Yuye in a red dress. "I was just tasting it. It's quite delicious," he said as he handed it to Hong Yuye. "This one is sweeter. What if it's not sweet?" Hong Yuye took the peach and smiled. "Then, I'll eat it." Jiang Hao lowered his head. Hong Yuye took a bite and then looked at him. "Do you think it's sweet or sour?" Jiang Hao didn't know how to answer. "It should be sweet." Hong Yuye glanced at him and sat down. "There are quite a few things in your courtyard." "They are all yours, senior," Jiang Hao said respectfully. Hong Yuye chuckled. After that, they continued to eat peaches. "Did you attend the gathering?" "Yes." Jiang Hao nodded. Then, he began to talk about the situation at the gathering. He told her about Old Man Corpse C and Sage's pages. Hong Yuye listened attentively. When he mentioned the dragon's nest, Hong Yuye asked, "Are you paying attention to that because of Xiao Li?" Jiang Hao nodded. "Did you feel anything when you approached the Gentian cliff?" Hong Yuye asked. "Feel anything?" Jiang Hao thought carefully and shook his head. No. He hadn't felt anything strange. Hong Yuye didn't say anything. Jiang Hao recalled the events from the gathering. "Is it because the Dragon Clan is about to appear? People from Clear Sky School are also looking for the dragon's location. It seems the same overseas. You have a dragon here. Why don't you think the Dragon Clan could have actually appeared?" Hong Yuye smiled. "If others are looking for dragons, wouldn't they find their way here?" Jiang Hao was stunned. He hadn't thought about that. Xiao Li was a true dragon, and she also had a dragon pearl. If others were on a hunt for dragons, it wouldn't be impossible for them to find their way here. It seemed that he needed to pay close attention to it. Next time, he could ask Xing to find out more about the information Clear Sky School had on dragons. Chapter 876, Finding 3 Mistresses for the Master. Late at night, Hong Yuye slept on Jiang Hao's bed. On the balcony, Jiang Hao looked at the moon outside. Now that he had seen Zhong's inner demon, he was concerned. He felt quite emotional. When his cultivation realm was weak, he never went looking for danger. But his cultivation realm was high now. With various magical treasures, it wouldn't be a big problem to venture out. At 38, almost approaching 39, he was considered middle-aged among ordinary people. In the cultivation world, it was rare for ordinary folks to live past 50. He might never find the people he wanted to find ever again. It was quite disappointing. Meeting them again might bring benefits for him. It was only a wish. Jiang Hao muttered. Ascending to immortality was still a distant goal for him, and he had encountered very few true immortals. He had never faced the true might of an immortal. If he had, perhaps he would already be dead. It was better to avoid powerful individuals. After venturing out, he was now certain that the Heavenly Note sect wasn't the most dangerous place in the cultivation world. In the east or the west, some powerful individuals would be out for his blood. However, in the south, everyone knew about the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl and the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl. There was no place in the world that was completely safe. Fortunately, the east and the west were both under his control. The Nine Nether was dangerous, but it was lucky that it feared him. In a while, I can entrust the Nine Nether to Xiao Li again. Jiang Hao closed his eyes and rested. It had been a long time since he had visited the 100 Bones forest. He decided to check in on Bai Yi. The next morning, when Jiang Hao came out of his cultivation, Hong Yuye had already left. He sighed in relief and went to water the plants in his courtyard. He hadn't been here for almost 3 months, but the growth of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower was as healthy as ever. Although it had some buds, there was nothing beyond that. After channeling purple energy for a while, he stood up and left. When he reached the entrance of the courtyard, he found the spirit beast lying on the ground with a swollen face. He didn't know when it had returned. He took out the half-moon blade and poked the beast gently. The spirit beast suddenly opened its eyes. Then, it covered its face and wailed. "Master, I knew you had returned. My friends told me." Jiang Hao chuckled. "Your friends are really well informed." At that moment, the spirit beast looked up at Jiang Hao. "Is it really you, Master? Has anything happened to the sect in these few months?" Jiang Hao asked. "Some people came to look for you. That woman who eats people, the one who eats people." Jiang Hao thought for a moment. "Ah, Senior Sister Ming Yi." The spirit beast didn't remember her name. Senior Sister Ming Yi might be in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. She was a dangerous person. It had been many years since he last saw her, and he didn't know what she was planning. "Master, it has been so many years. Why don't you have any mistresses?" asked the spirit beast. Jiang Hao remained calm. "Master, do you want me to find someone for you?" "I'll find one. Xiao Li will help. Cheng Chou and the others will help too. We can find you 3, said the spirit beast excitedly. "That way, everyone will be satisfied. If you are not satisfied, I can find one for you myself. You'll have 4 in total. My friends will help me. It's no problem." The spirit beast patted its chest. Jiang Hao looked at it. The beast really did care about him. At that time, the golden ring appeared in his hand. "Your gift." The beast's face lit up. It then put the ring on its other hand. Now it had 2 rings on each of its hands and a collar on its neck. The 3 accessories spun. The spirit beast then threw them into the water. It jumped after them and swam away. It then jumped up through the rings joyfully. Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention to it. He headed to the spirit herb garden. There was no rush to report the completion of his mission. After all, the fine was not that big. Jiang Hao saw Cheng Chou when he arrived. "Senior brother Jiang, you're back," said Cheng Chou excitedly. "Anything happened in the spirit herb garden?" Jiang Hao asked. "Not anything big. Just small matters," said Cheng Chou. He looked a little helpless. "It's the same as before. Since you've been gone, the people from the Candlelight Pill Pavilion have gone back to their old ways. Now that you are here, they might do better." Jiang Hao displayed his cultivation in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. "Is it still the Foundation Establishment Alchemist?" he asked. Cheng Chou nodded. "Besides that, has anything else happened recently?" Jiang Hao asked. Cheng Chou thought for a moment. "The people from the Heavenly Saint sect are expected to retaliate. There were some infiltrators. Many spirit herb gardens have also been damaged to some extent. Since we haven't added more people here, we're fine for now. Lord Beast is also keeping an eye out. There was a person who tried to mess with ordinary people, but Lord Beast caught him. Thanks to you, Senior Brother Jiang, we're all safe. Under Lord Beast's guidance, Xiao Li also captured an important spy. I heard the spy was very strong, but she captured him. It was thanks to Lord Beast's help. Who got the credit for that? Jiang Hao asked. Most of it went to you, senior brother, Cheng Cho said. Jiang Hao frowned. It seemed that Lord Beast and Xiao Li were causing trouble for him again. He couldn't do anything rash for now. But there's one problem, Cheng Cho said. The spy from the Heavenly Saint sect, who was caught, insisted on meeting you. He claimed that you betrayed him, and he wanted to expose you. Jiang Hao was speechless. It seemed that the beast had done its part wonderfully. Senior brother Jiang, you're back. Xiao Li shouted in excitement. She ran to him joyfully with the spirit beast in her arms. She looked at Jiang Hao in anticipation. It seemed she had found out about the ring he had given to the spirit beast and wanted one too. But she didn't know how to ask for it. Jiang Hao handed her a golden ring. Is this for me? Xiao Li asked excitedly. Yeah. Jiang Hao nodded. Thank you, senior brother Jiang. Xiao Li jumped up excitedly. She gave Jiang Hao some jujubes. Here. For you, senior brother Jiang. Jiang Hao tried one. It tasted good. Then, he looked at Cheng Cho. It's been a long time since you advanced to the middle stage, right? Just a few years, Cheng Cho said in embarrassment. This time, I'll explain it to you from the beginning. If you have any questions, ask me. It might help you refine your realm. The Golden Core realm may be within reach, said Jiang Hao matter-of-factly. Chapter 877, Old Sea Corpse Man thinks the South is safe. Jiang Hao was about to explain, and Cheng Cho was naturally very happy to listen. However, it was the first time senior brother Jiang had spoken so seriously. Moreover, he mentioned the Golden Core realm. Cheng Cho dared not be negligent. From the Lifeblood Refinement realm to the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm? Cheng Cho asked. You are still in the middle stage right now. I can't go into details for the later stages. I can only give a rough explanation. When you reach the late stage, I will explain more to you again, Jiang Hao said. Cheng Cho nodded in gratitude. After that, Jiang Hao walked inside. At that moment, two Lifeblood Refinement Realm disciples exchanged glances. They were wondering whether they could follow and listen. I heard that senior brother Jiang is proficient in the Blood Wish path. What exactly is the Blood Wish path? I only know that senior brother Cheng Cho isn't very highly regarded. Everyone said that he had no hope of reaching the Foundation Establishment realm, but he is now in the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. What about us? The two disciples thought that if it could help them, the Blood Wish path wasn't really that wrong. The two quickly followed. They wanted to hear the explanation from the other side. In the Spirit Herb Garden, in front of a simple pavilion, Jiang Hao sat at his usual spot, and Cheng Cho sat near him and listened. Let's start from the very beginning with the Lifeblood Refinement realm. Absorb the faint spiritual energy and gradually adapt. This is the most basic cultivation method. After cultivation, sensing spiritual energy becomes commonplace. Few people experience the process. Today, I will help you understand this process. Establishing the foundation, nurturing the essence, and building a solid foundation will pave the way for future achievements. Jiang Hao explained slowly and clearly, but as it progressed, Cheng Cho became even more confused. He knew it was due to his limited talent. However, diligence could compensate for a lack of skill, so he made sure to note down all the key points. Jiang Hao looked at Cheng Cho, not continuing his topic but waiting for him to finish recording. If he couldn't remember, it had to be noted down. Otherwise, wouldn't everything be in vain? As Jiang Hao explained, the others followed in excitement. The shackles that bound them were completely shattered, and they unexpectedly broke through to the 6th level of the Lifeblood Refinement realm. Others benefited immensely. Over time, more people came, and they quietly listened in without asking more questions. Most were in the Lifeblood Refinement, but there were also groups of 3 or 2 in the Foundation Establishment realm. Some other people observed from a distance. However, seeing one breakthrough after another, they couldn't restrain themselves. I'll go listen in too. A 9th-level lifeblood refinement realm cultivator hesitated for a long time but walked over. He had already prepared a foundation establishment pill, but he still wasn't confident. His friend wanted to hold him back but ultimately gave up. After a short time, he suddenly gained enlightenment, swallowed the foundation building pill, and broke through on the spot. His friend, who was looking from afar, found it unbelievable. He hesitated for a long time but didn't go over. Just as he approached, he heard senior brother Jiang calmly say, "That's it for today. Go back and study. If you have any questions, come and ask me." The session ended, and those who had just arrived left in a daze. Jiang Hao didn't care about them. Whether it was the blood wish path or something else, he was just explaining things to Cheng Cho. Others could listen if they wanted. After all, he only talked about lifeblood refinement realm and foundation establishment realm. Perhaps many people felt that he was only researching the blood wish path, and only those with weak cultivation would be most likely to become his blood wish path disciples. After everyone dispersed, Jiang Hao began to manage the spirit herb garden. He was only 3 months away, but it felt like it had been a long time. Every time he went out, he felt that. When he finished his work, it was already evening. After hesitating, he went to the task hall. The senior sister at the task hall welcomed him warmly. Jiang Hao was curious. If he told her that he had fulfilled the task successfully, would her face change? "Junior brother Jiang, has the mission been completed?" she asked. Jiang Hao shook his head. "It's okay." She smiled. "It's a bit of a shame, but it's all right. You can take easier missions and still venture out for 2 months more. Although you are still on the suspect list, we have other ways to help you." Jiang Hao admired Task Hall's determination to earn more spirit stones. He paid 1,000 spirit stones and decided to settle the rest of the due within the next 2 months. As he left, Jiang Hao suddenly remembered that he hadn't received a sect mission for quite some time. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before he was asked to go on a sect mission. He needed to meet junior brother Han. He might be close to advancing. Back at his residence, Jiang Hao took out the Mountain River sword embryo. Placing another sword beside it, he exerted force to try to extract the sword's intent and activate the sword embryo. The sword embryo showed no reaction. The sword's intent alone was not enough to activate it. After some hesitation, he stuck the sword embryo outside the courtyard to see if anyone would be interested. Ordinary people couldn't detect this sword embryo unless they were fated. Later, Jiang Hao returned to the courtyard and began crafting talismans. There was nothing urgent. He needed to earn spirit stones to digest the divine soul of the Holy Master. He still had 200,000 spirit stones. But he didn't want to throw them all in together. At least 10,000 had to be left for the incarnation of the immortal peach tree. After a few more times, the peach tree would be at its final incarnation. Jiang Hao wondered what would happen. A divine tree wouldn't be that simple. In the west, Old Man Corpse C glanced at the sky and then walked to the south. There is no immortal sect over there, and I haven't explored it properly before. I'll take a look properly this time. Due to the heavenly fate misfortune pearl, he didn't want to stay in the west. The situation here was more complicated than expected. The loss of an avatar was somewhat regrettable. At least it should have died meaningfully. Going to the south might be safer, and he also wanted to see what was there. He was always curious about why there was never an immortal sect in the south. The Bright Moon sect and the Clear Sky School were willing to stay together in the east. I'll go and see if I find something. Could the south be more dangerous than the west had been anyway? Baizhu looked at the now recovered Chu Jie in some disbelief. When you came back, you were seriously injured. Is it better now? Yeah, it's better. Actually, it wasn't much of an injury. Chu Jie turned around. But I feel like your recovery was so quick. Xiao Yi was surprised. She had checked her pulse and treated her wounds. They had been so bad that it was practically impossible to recover so quickly. The pain would have been unbearable to an ordinary person. It had suddenly gotten better. This person was different from ordinary people. Baizhu also looked shocked. Where do you plan to go, Chu Jie? Baizhu suddenly asked. I'll wander around and see what comes up. My journey is a starting point and an end point at the same time. Then, let's go to the dragon's nest. Baizhu smiled. Chapter 878. They are competing for a woman in the bright moon sect in the east. Shu Bai stood on top of a mountain peak. He was like a giant between heaven and earth. Looks like you're almost there. A middle-aged man walked to Shu Bai. Still quite a bit to go. Shu Bai shook his head. Master, is there news? The Heavenly Spirit tribe does show signs of recovery, and the master of the Heavenly Saint sect is accelerating his descent. There's a high probability that the immortal seed is about to bloom again. Can't it be stopped? Shu Bai asked. Hard to say, but we can try to suppress it. The thing should still be with the Heavenly Spirit tribe, and those who have achieved immortality can't enter. You have to go in person, said the middle-aged man. We just need to buy 200 years for Chu Jie. The hearts of the saints of the Clear Sky School have already become immortals, and they don't care. But the old guys from various races have started to stir things up, which might affect the great fortune. Is there a chance of success for junior sister Chu? Shu Bai was curious. The middle-aged man sighed. She wants to walk the mortal world and face dangers on her own. No matter how many people in the sect oppose it, it's useless. She insists on forging her path to immortality. Do you think she can succeed? What? Shu Bai was surprised. The heart of the heavenly Tao, the middle-aged man looked even more helpless. Many people in the sect are worried that she might end up dead too soon. The more special someone was, the more difficult their journey would be. It was easier for them to end up dead faster. Every race would try to get rid of someone with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. Chu Jie had already condensed the heart of the Tao. They dared not spread that news. If it weren't for that person's help, Chu Jie would have been in danger. The middle-aged man was a bit puzzled. That person has helped us twice in a row now, but they still refuse to show up. Shu Bai lowered his head. Master, shall I set off? He asked. Go to the south. The middle-aged man thought for a moment. Take something to the Grand Earth Emperor. Maybe he can help. Just don't die. Shu Bai nodded and left on his flying sword. He went out alone, and it would take quite a while to return. In the Heavenly Note sect in the south, Jiang Hao picked a peach early in the morning. Xiao Li stood at the door and watched him sneakily. She stared at the peaches in his hands. Jiang Hao felt like he had somehow taken Xiao Li's peaches. Xiao Li stared at him for a while and pouted as though someone had snatched her food away. Is this yours? Jiang Hao asked as he extended a peach in his hand. I've been taking care of it for a long time. Xiao Li walked in. Taking care of it. Jiang Hao felt like he had committed a crime. After handing over the uneaten half of the peach, Xiao Li smiled. She took the spirit beast to swim. Jiang Hao felt that it was quite interesting that Xiao Li was teaching the spirit beast to swim. He remembered the blue fish. It never came back. It had informed him about the abyssal dragon pearl. He wanted to know more, but it had never come back. Jiang Hao saw a young man as he walked out of the courtyard. He stood on the opposite bank of the river and gazed at Jiang Hao. Senior brother Jiang, you're back. It was Han Ming. He was in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh. Junior brother Han was impressive. His aura was extremely dense. Junior brother Han, here to challenge me again? Jiang Hao asked with a smile. Yes. Han Ming nodded. This time, I hope you'll be on your guard. Otherwise, I might hurt you. Junior brother Han, I see you're confident. I guess you came across something extraordinary, said Jiang Hao. With your talent, no one on the Cliff of Broken Hearts is your match. It's just a matter of time before I'll be defeated by you. Han Ming snorted. His aura surged. The space around changed and an invisible force surged toward Jiang Hao. He remained calm and composed. The pressure gradually intensified, and Xiao Li and the spirit beast hid. Beast, is senior brother Han fighting with senior brother Jiang? No. That is just a competition. Maybe they are fighting over a woman. Fighting for senior sister? How is that possible? Senior sister only has senior brother Jiang's scent on her, and senior brother also has her scent on him. They are a perfect match. Nonsense. Master is like a lion. There might be many mistresses throwing themselves at him. That's useless. Senior brother Jiang doesn't care about any of them. The mistresses that master chooses may not value us. How about each of us finding a mistress for master? No way. Xiao Li directly covered her ears and didn't listen to the spirit beast. At that moment, a flash of sword light passed by. A loud rumbling sound followed, and the light of a sword and the sweep of a blade resonated together. For a moment, the sword light and the blade light clashed. The river water was stirred up into the air. When the water fell again, they landed on Han Ming. At that moment, the sword in his hand fell. He had lost again. Han Ming looked at Jiang Hao in disbelief. Senior brother Jiang, you've advanced. Junior brother Han, you're very talented. I just got lucky. If I hadn't advanced at the last moment, I would have lost. Han Ming bowed to Jiang Hao and left. Jiang Hao didn't pay too much attention to it. Han Ming's sword intent was indeed pure, and it was a pity that such a pure sword cultivator did not have a place in the Heavenly Note sect. It would be extremely difficult to teach Han Ming. It was not impossible to find resources, but there weren't many people who could teach him in the sect. Han Ming could only study on his own. When did Han Ming start on this path? Jiang Hao thought for a moment. The sword embryo appeared. It had turned into a seed and had the potential to grow strong. Shaking his head with a sigh, he turned and headed to the spirit herb garden. Unlike Jiang Hao, Han Ming returned to his house dejectedly. He had consumed too much energy to fight Jiang Hao, so he wanted to rest. As soon as he lay down, he felt a bit uneasy. He opened his eyes again. What's going on? He sat cross-legged on the bed, checked his condition, and lay down to rest again. He felt discomfort in his chest. It seemed like something was missing there. He got up again. He couldn't find the reason for it. He could only go out to practice the sword. However, the more he practiced, the more he felt something was wrong. It seemed that the power of the sword was different from before. It felt restrained. What is affecting me? He had a lot of experience in sword cultivation. He knew that his condition wasn't right. It was being influenced by something else. Chapter 879, Junior Brother Jiang, wait for me to advance and find you a partner. Han Ming sat in front of the house and looked up at the sky. He sat there from day to night but couldn't figure out what was affecting him. It seemed to have started after returning from sparring with senior brother Jiang. Is it an inner demon? Han Ming doubted whether his defeat had given rise to an inner demon. He hadn't admitted defeat yet, so how could there be an inner demon? He hadn't experienced an inner demon before, but this didn't feel like it. At that moment, he felt something strange, and the sword in his hand became ordinary. When practicing the sword, movements had to be unrestrained. It should feel like an extension of his limbs. It shouldn't be like this. So far, he had never seen this sword. Han Ming couldn't understand it and could do nothing but try to hide his condition. He would practice like he always did and improve. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to make any progress and surpass senior brother Jiang. Senior brother Jiang's cultivation was advancing rapidly, and he needed to be even faster. One day, he would defeat senior brother Jiang. By then, he would be a senior. Around early October, Jiang Hao had completed most of what needed to be done. He only had to meet Lin Ji now. The Candlelight Pill Pavilion was slowly returning the spirit stones that they owed the garden. Cheng Chou didn't dare to provoke them. Many people in the Candlelight Pill Pavilion respected Jiang Hao whether they were in the Golden Core Realm or the Primordial Spirit Realm. The group of Foundation Establishment Realm alchemists dared not offend Jiang Hao. While Jiang Hao tended the Spirit Herb Garden, the Spirit Beast and Xiao Li played on the side. They strolled around the Spirit Herb Garden to make sure everything was okay. Every few minutes, it went to report to Jiang Hao. Junior brother Jiang, said a voice behind Jiang Hao. It was senior sister Miao Tinglian. Jiang Hao didn't care who was in the Spirit Herb Garden as long as it wasn't Miao Tinglian. He didn't want to see her. Senior sister Miao Tinglian was very good to him, so he shouldn't treat her that way, but she was always trying to set him up with other women. Senior Sister Miao, how are you? Jiang Hao said. Senior Sister Miao Tinglian had healed completely. The danger from the Holy Master was over. After all, it was the matter with the Holy Master. Fortunately, the Heavenly Note sect had strengthened their security, so it was difficult for the spies to sneak in. Are you already in the late stage of the Golden Core realm? She asked in disbelief. Yeah, I got lucky, he said. How old are you now, junior brother Jiang? Miao Tinglian asked. 38, I think. Jiang Hao sighed. He wasn't young anymore. He had been only 19 when he made it to the Foundation Establishment realm. It seemed like only yesterday. Time passed by so fast. Late stage of the Golden Core realm at 38? Miao Tinglian couldn't believe it. You've caught up to me in cultivation already? Senior Sister, you haven't had much time to cultivate, he said. In fact, Senior Sister Miao Tinglian had very high talent. If she worked hard, she could advance rapidly. Unfortunately, her progress was too slow because she kept focusing on other unnecessary things. That won't do. The juniors I've been meeting aren't worthy of you. I can't talk to those with higher cultivation because they won't hear me out at all. I'll discuss it with Mu Qi. I plan to advance to the primordial spirit realm in the next few years, Miao Tinglian said seriously. Jiang Hao was speechless. Even with sufficient talent, advancing to the primordial spirit realm in just a few years was unimaginable. Is it that unbelievable? Miao Tinglian asked. That is the benefit of having a partner. Anyway, it's not a big deal. Junior brother, take it slow. If you go too fast, I'll have to rely even more on Mu Qi's influence. Mu Qi had an inheritance treasure. He was also a true disciple. His cultivation was not weak. He had considerable influence within the sect. Why are you doing this, Senior Sister Miao? Jiang Hao asked. To find you a partner, of course. It doesn't matter if the cultivation is weak, but talent and temperament must match yours. Finding a partner for a lifetime is a big deal, and you don't have much time. I have to keep an eye out, said Miao Tinglian. Jiang Hao was touched that she cared for him so much. Unfortunately, he didn't really want a partner. His only chance was to advance rapidly so that Miao Tinglian would give up on finding him a match. After thinking for a moment, Miao Tinglian suddenly asked, Junior brother Jiang, what do you think of the immortal ladies from outside the sect? Other demonic sects? Jiang Hao asked. How can that be? Miao Tinglian said solemnly. Normal demonic sects don't have anyone suitable for you. With your talent and temperament, you shouldn't be looking for demonic sects. You should have someone from an immortal sect. I know some people from immortal sects. I'll send them an invitation, and you can check them out. Jiang Hao was speechless. He helplessly went to find senior brother Mu Qi. He hoped that Mu Qi could help him. I'm serious, Mu Qi. Let go of me. I only want to talk to him, said Miao Tinglian as Mu Qi pulled her away. Jiang Hao quickly walked away. Senior Sister Miao Tinglian had her heart in the right place, but she was sometimes too nosy. If he had known, he would have chosen someone else. While managing the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao also observed the ordinary people. Everyone seemed okay. There was no apparent problem. He no longer had to use his appraising ability for small matters. It was not only because he had sufficient control over his strength but also because of insights into the Nameless Manual. More importantly, his cultivation had improved significantly. If he couldn't handle the issues in the spirit herb garden, then it would be quite disappointing unless it was someone stronger than him like Lu Mantian. On the surface, Lu Mantian seemed like he was in the return to Void Realm, but no one knew how powerful he was. As the day ended, Jiang Hao prepared to return to his house. He met Liu Xingchen on the way. It had been a long time since he had seen him. Liu Xingchen seemed quite normal, but there was a black aura on him. Within it were 3 faint figures. They couldn't be seen clearly. From the looks of it, those 3 hadn't come out for a long time. Maybe Liu Xingchen found it boring and didn't let them out. He needed to find something more interesting. Junior brother Jiang, it's been very long. I heard you were accused of being involved with spies again, said Liu Xingchen. Yes, but no one came to get me this time, Jiang Hao said. He thought that the people from the law enforcement hall would come looking for him, but they completely ignored him. The law enforcement hall is very busy. I heard that the people from the lawless tower are once again arresting people everywhere, and the law enforcement hall has to assist. They don't have time to deal with you. After all, similar incidents happen all the time, and no matter how they investigate, they can't find any evidence against you. In the law enforcement hall, you have become a figure that no one bothers with anymore, said Liu Xingchen. Chapter 880. Do you think the appearance of a charm body is a coincidence? A person no one bothers with? Jiang Hao felt helpless. He hadn't expected things to turn out like this. Over the years, he had kept in contact with the law enforcement hall. Many times, he had been suspected of being a traitor, but they had no evidence against him. The people from the task hall and merit hall also pressured the law enforcement hall. Maybe they had given up the investigation because there were no new clues. There were too many things to deal with. Oftentimes, it was clear that Jiang Hao was only a scapegoat for those spies who were captured. Aren't they going to investigate at all? Jiang Hao asked. Investigate? Liu Xingchen smiled. They interrogated the sky and asked him to explain everything in detail. But the spy didn't have any information on you. So, the law enforcement hall doesn't want to waste their time. It's still good to investigate thoroughly, which they did. They found others connected to the spy. The lawless tower has been very busy lately. Jiang Hao was surprised. So, they did investigate. Was the lawless tower really that busy? He hadn't been there for a long time. In the past, he occasionally visited the lawless tower to question Zhuang Yuzhen. But now, he was left to his own devices. The sect didn't care. It seemed that there were fewer people paying attention to the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. At first, there was Liu Xingchen, senior sister Ming Yi, and the spirit beast. They had been after the flower. Now, Liu Xingchen didn't pay any attention to it at all. He just didn't want to be bored. Ming Yi hadn't visited him lately. Maybe she was planning something. As for the beast, it was no longer a tool to be used. Jiang Hao had adopted and raised it. The spirit beast's cultivation was at the peak of the golden core realm. The spirit beast wasn't reckless. Otherwise, it could have escaped by now. There's something I want to tell you, junior brother Jiang, Liu Xingchen said. The Heavenly Joy Pavilion has decided to give up on you. They no longer want to target you. Jiang Hao was surprised. He was quite puzzled. Why? The master from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion was no longer after him. It kind of took the shine away from his struggle. He felt that the danger had spurred him to grow. With the pavilion master off his back, he might slack off. Although Hong Yuye was dangerous, the pavilion master was also strong. It's because they found a charm body who can help the pavilion master with his advancement, said Liu Xingchen. Jiang Hao sighed. So, another charm body has appeared. Speaking of which, do you know who that person is? Liu Xingchen looked at Jiang Hao carefully. Jiang Hao shook his head. Who is it? The heaven extinction Jiu poison helped keep his emotions in check. He pretended to be indifferent. It's Li Minute, the junior who went to the mine with you, junior brother. It is said that she didn't have a gift of enchantment at first, but she was blessed after coming out of the mine, said Liu Xingchen as he looked at Jiang Hao meaningfully. Don't you find that strange? It's indeed very strange. Jiang Hao nodded. No one knows how it happened. If it were somewhere else, everyone would have some theory. But since it was in the mine, no one knows what happened, said Liu Xingchen with a smile. Junior brother Jiang, do you think it's possible that it was artificially done? Maybe someone used the mines as a cover. It shouldn't be possible, Jiang Hao said in surprise. True. I've never heard of such a method. Liu Xingchen smiled and nodded. He then informed Jiang Hao about the recent changes in the sect. I heard that senior brother Manlong has once again become the 10th top disciple. Jiang Hao was not surprised by this. It had been many years since the incident with Bai Yi. The punishment period had expired. Liu Xingchen also mentioned that people from the Heavenly Saint sect had been keeping an eye on the Heavenly Note sect, especially after the incident in the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Liu Xingchen didn't linger after that. Out of curiosity, Jiang Hao appraised Liu Xingchen. Liu Xingchen, true disciple of the Clear Sky School. Born with the aura of the true dragon. He is undercover at the Law Enforcement Hall. Seeds of evil have been blooming and feeding the 3 remnant souls in his body. He came to you because he found it strange that Li Minute suddenly had the gift of a charm body. He suspects it's because of you. He also thinks that the disappearance of the Holy Master and Divine Soul is somehow connected with you. His interest grows toward you. He is excited to see what other changes might occur. He wants to find another remnant soul to encourage the 3 souls in his body because he is bored. Jiang Hao sighed. Liu Xingchen really did nothing except watch the show. His body was still filled with evil aura, yet he wasn't fully refining his cultivation. Instead, he was there for the show. Jiang Hao returned to his courtyard. He planned to visit the Lawless Tower in the next few days. He also intended to brief Cheng Chou on questions he might have. After the explanation, he was bound to have questions. Jiang Hao spared no effort in sharing what he had learned and knew. Cheng Chou's talent was average. Sometimes, it took until the night for him to understand what Jiang Hao wanted to teach him. Jiang Hao helped him as best as he was able. The spirit beast and Xiao Li also stayed up late with him when that happened. I've learned it all, Xiao Li said as she demonstrated it to Cheng Chou. The spirit beast flew in the air. As long as you invoke my name, the spiritual energy around you will obey. Jiang Hao sat on the side and watched. Cheng Chou muttered something. He might actually be chanting Lord Beast's name. It was better than nothing. And then, it happened. He succeeded. The spirit beast was very excited. Xiao Li and Cheng Chou were both delighted. Jiang Hao could only shake his head. These kids really thought the beast was helping. Cheng Chou walked with them. He was somewhat puzzled. Senior brother Han Ming has been acting very strangely. He constantly wanders around as though he is looking for something. He always seems to be lost in thought. He is different from before. Jiang Hao was surprised. What had happened to junior brother Han? Cheng Chou also didn't know everything clearly. He just knew that Han Ming had been acting very strangely. Jiang Hao planned to check in on him when he had time. The next day, Han Ming arrived at the spirit herb garden as Jiang Hao reached. I'm here because I feel weird after last time. More than 10 days had passed, and his heart was restless. The discomfort in his chest became worse. He had searched for a solution everywhere but couldn't find anything. He had no choice but to visit the spirit herb garden and ask for help. Could it really be that senior brother Jiang has somehow planted within me an inner demon? He didn't believe it. He sat cross-legged and tried to calm himself. As time passed, his restless heart gradually became calm. This was the first time he had felt some peace in days. So, the solution was here. Chapter 881, Price of the Sword Embryo. Han Ming opened his eyes after a while. He didn't sense anything. After some thought, he changed his spot. As he walked away from the garden, he felt the restlessness again as if it was tearing away from him. When he returned to the place, it disappeared. What could it be? No matter how he looked, he couldn't find anything. Could it be inside the courtyard? He glanced inside. The courtyard was covered by an array. There was mist in there. He didn't enter the courtyard. He simply walked around it to see if he could find anything. Apart from a peach tree and a grove of bamboo, he didn't see anything striking. Where could it be? Han Ming frowned. As it began to darken, he decided to leave. He saw Jiang Hao returning home from the garden. In his haste, he stumbled over something. He saw a sword embedded in the soil. It looked ordinary. But the moment he saw it, he felt delighted. This was it. He couldn't look away. It was as though he was destined to be here. Han Ming found it unbelievable. He squatted down to grasp the seemingly ordinary sword. In an instant, his mind became clear, and the surrounding aura flowed in him. A strange feeling arose in his heart. It felt as though he was one with this blade. He finally felt calm. Even his cultivation improved. What is this? He pulled out the sword. Although he didn't know what it was undoubtedly something extraordinary. He looked around. There was no one around. But he walked to the front of the courtyard and waited. He didn't feel restless now. His mind was calm and clear. From a distance, Jiang Hao watched Han Ming. I never thought the destined person would be Han Ming. But why didn't he take it and leave? Jiang Hao had returned home early. The spirit beast had noticed Han Ming wandering around the courtyard. From noon until evening, Han Ming had been walking around the courtyard like a madman until he came upon the sword embryo. Jiang Hao thought Han Ming would take the sword and leave since no one had seen him take it. Unexpectedly, he seemed to be waiting for him to arrive. Jiang Hao stopped hiding and headed to his house. Han Ming saw Jiang Hao. Senior brother Jiang, junior brother Han, were you looking for me? Jiang Hao asked. I was just walking by when I found a sword at your place that was right for me. I was wondering if you would be willing to sell it, said Han Ming as he brought out the sword embryo. I don't really need that sword. Do you want it? Asked Jiang Hao. Yes. Then, take it as a gift from me, junior brother Han. No. I'd rather buy it from you. Please tell me how much you would want for it. Jiang Hao was amused. He had bought this sword for 50,000. Junior brother Han wouldn't be able to afford that even if he added all his life savings and sold all his treasures. He was a true disciple, but he didn't get paid much. Well then, Jiang Hao held up 5 fingers. How about 50 spirit stones? 50. Han Ming frowned. Is it too much? Jiang Hao asked. I can offer 5,000. Han Ming handed him 4,000 spirit stones. I'm short by 1,000 right now. I can pay you next month. So, he didn't even have 5,000. Jiang Hao was amused. As for the loss on his part, Jiang Hao didn't really care. It might not matter to others, but he felt grateful to Han Ming. He had used Han Ming's progress to hide his own for years. So, he felt that he owed him at least this much. Moreover, the sword embryo was of no use to him. Han Ming was the perfect match for it. If Han Ming progressed fast, it would ensure his safety too. I will come and find you to pay the remaining 1,000, said Han Ming. He took the sword, bowed, and left. Jiang Hao didn't mind. 5,000 spirit stones was not a small amount. He wondered what legacy that sword would create. After all, the one who wielded it wasn't an ordinary person. After Han Ming left, Jiang Hao headed toward the Lawless Tower. It had been a long time since he had visited that place. He wanted to see what was going on there. If there were new captives, it was worth a visit. Sometimes, people at the gathering wanted the people in the Lawless Tower. Jiang Hao wouldn't even know until someone mentioned someone else who was important. Besides, he hadn't offered wine and meat to Zhuang Yuzhen in a long time. He also wanted to check on Mi Lingyu and Hai Luo. If possible, he wanted to ask Mi Lingyu to forge him a good pickaxe for mining. She was a forging master, after all. At the entrance of the Lawless Tower, Jiang Hao saw 2 unfamiliar seniors, who were newly assigned to stand guard. When they saw Jiang Hao, they were surprised. They blocked his way. Junior brother, this is the Lawless Tower. You can't enter it just like that, said a senior sister at the primordial spirit realm. Jiang Hao bowed. I want to see someone inside. It's not that we want to stop you, but the place might be dangerous for you. If you want to go in anyway, that's all right. We're just trying to warn you, said the senior and made way for him. Jiang Hao thanked them politely and walked in. The 2 guards looked at him curiously. Not long after, Yinshaw walked out. She looked like she was getting a headache. The senior sister hesitantly said, Senior sister Yinshaw, there's something. Just now, a junior went in. We advised him that it might be dangerous for him, but he went in anyway. Yinshaw was surprised. Who was it? A junior at the late stage of the Golden Core realm. I'm not sure which branch he is from. Golden Core realm? Yinshaw seemed to understand. I see. Don't worry about him. If he visits again, just let him in. The 2 guards looked at each other. They didn't understand. Was that junior special? From Yinsho's tone, it seemed that he visited often. On the 5th floor, when Jiang Hao arrived, it was quiet. That was strange. Usually, Hai Luo would be loud and boastful. When he saw the cells, he noticed that everyone was sitting against it dejectedly. It seemed like no one wanted to talk. Zhuang Yuzhen looked glad to see Jiang Hao. What's going on? Jiang Hao asked. Nangong Yu and others finally noticed him. They looked at Jiang Hao in delight. Finally. Where were you? Aren't you going to interrogate us? Jiang Hao was surprised. Chapter 882. Truly the king of the 5th floor. Jiang Hao looked at the prison cells. In cell number 1 was Zhuang Yuzhen. Hai Luo was in cell 2. Nangong Yu was in cell 3 and Mi Lingyu in 4. They were the only old captives. The others were all new. In cell number 5, there was a man with disheveled hair. He was kneeling on the floor in a daze. He looked calm. Seems like it's been long since anyone visited. Jiang Hao walked to Nangong Yu. She had mentioned as much. Although he hadn't visited for long, it had only been a year or two. For these people, several years without meeting anyone wouldn't make a difference. It wasn't solitary confinement anyway. Why is it a problem? Jiang Hao asked. No one could stir up trouble in the lawless tower. It's a problem. It's too painful. He is next to me, said Mi Lingyu. If she could, she would have left as soon as possible. What's wrong with him? Jiang Hao asked. Always picking on me, scoffed Hai Luo. Why would I bother with you all? Do you really think him the same as you? Ha ha ha. A sharp laughter rang out. Jiang Hao turned toward the direction of the laughter. It was the man who had been kneeling on the floor with his head bowed. He was suddenly laughing maniacally. The sound was grating. It took Jiang Hao by surprise. What is he up to? The man was young. He was pale but had some red marks on his face. They were probably birthmarks. That's it. He does that, said Nangong Yu. We have been hearing that laughter for half a year now. It happens day and night, and no one has a way to deal with it. Jiang Hao remained calm, but even he felt like the laughter was jarring and uncomfortable. He just keeps laughing. Only ever shuts up during tea time, said Mi Lingyu. Can no one make him stop? Jiang Hao asked. Zhuang Yuzhen shook his head. Everyone has tried everything. Threats, bribes, rewards, nothing works. Jiang Hao was curious. He appraised the person. Wen Zhu, one of the top 3,000 members of the Great Thousand God sect, whose cultivation was absorbed and disintegrated by the lawless tower. He is not only at the early stage of the primordial spirit realm. He knew that Mi Lingyu had been caught and held in the lawless tower. He was afraid that she might break away from the sect's control, so he came to investigate. He wanted to send a message through his laughter. However, it seemed the message didn't go through, and he became somewhat manic. He tried to use the mania to his advantage to transmit the message. The more time passed, the more anxious he became. The true face pill he desired was about to be ready, and he was going to go out and use it to heal the scars on his face. He is afraid that the poison of the bitter tea will deepen his scars and make it impossible for the true face pill to heal them. Jiang Hao was surprised. He hadn't expected this person to care so much for his appearance. He was similar to Feng Hua. But it was a little different. His scars could still be healed if he didn't drink the bitter tea. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Hao walked over to him. Senior, can we talk? Jiang Hao asked. However, the person continued to laugh maniacally and ignored Jiang Hao. Senior, can you please be quiet for a moment? Jiang Hao asked again. Zhuang Yuzhen and the others stared at Jiang Hao. What they awaited would happen once again. They hoped Jiang Hao could do it. They couldn't stand the laughter. Jiang Hao looked at Wen Zhu. He completely ignored him as though he wasn't worth paying attention to. His laughter was like a mockery to outsiders. Jiang Hao remained calm. He extended his hand and beckoned to the person. Senior, can you come over here? Ha ha ha. The laughter continued. Jiang Hao sighed. Look, What I am going to say isn't funny. After I say it, you won't feel like laughing, either. The person continued to laugh. Jiang Hao said, poison of the bitter tea. The laughter abruptly stopped. Mi Lingyu and the others were shocked. This legend of a person never changed. At that moment, Wenju looked at Jiang Hao resentfully. It seems you don't find that funny too, senior, said Jiang Hao. What do you want? Wenju asked. Nothing. I just feel like war is other people's peace, said Jiang Hao. He also realized that this person might know something about Feng Hua. He wanted to use this person to find out Feng Hua's true identity. Feng Hua was vindictive. So, it was better to find a way to make her let go of her hatred. Otherwise, Jiang Hao couldn't be at peace anywhere. Feng Hua was capable of anything. Wenju was silent. She looked skeptical. Ha ha ha. Laugh. Continue your laughter. I haven't had enough of it yet, said Hai Luo smugly. Yeah, keep laughing in the face of this arrogant heavenly king, said Mi Lingyu. Nangong Yu looked at Jiang Hao. She hadn't gone through the process where Jiang Hao would beckon to her and reveal her secrets. She had been curious for a while but realized it was better to not question things like that. Yinshaw had just come up to the 5th floor to find Jiang Hao to ask him for help. However, when she arrived, the 5th floor was very quiet. Usually, it would be very noisy. She was frustrated with the laughing man, but they had to keep him alive to see if he was still useful. The 5th floor had become a place they didn't like to visit. With time, Elder Baiji focused less and less on Zhuang Yuzhen and others. Why was the laughter gone? Yinshaw saw Wenju staring at Jiang Hao. She understood what was going on. Mi Lingyu and the others had mentioned that something like this always happened with Jiang Hao, but she hadn't seen it. Those who were often on the 5th floor knew about this. Such information couldn't be spread publicly. If news got out, it would affect Jiang Hao. He always kept a low profile because he didn't want to attract unwanted attention. If there was an issue because of this, Jiang Hao might not want to come to the tower anymore. It would be troublesome to seek help from him. They needed to ask Elder Baiji for permission. If there were no problems, they could ask him for help in the future. Junior brother Jiang, there's something I'd like your help with, Yinshaw said. In the city near the Heavenly Note sect, Shangguan Qingsu sat in an inn and looked into the distance. There is no news about Smiling San Sheng at all. Where on earth is he? Do I have to go to the Heavenly Note sect? The Heavenly Note sect has captured people from the Great Thousand God sect lately. Who are they looking for? Overseas people have suffered at the hands of the Heavenly Note sect. We can't underestimate them. I need an excuse to infiltrate the sect. There's a big problem. If Smiling San Sheng can't help with the curse, what will I do? Chapter 883, The Reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit at the Lawless Tower. Jiang Hao was puzzled. There shouldn't be anything else on the 5th floor. He had already made Wenju cooperate. What else was he needed for? It's someone from the upper floor. They are very stubborn, and I want you to take a look, said Yinshaw. Who is it? Jiang Hao asked curiously. He couldn't handle some people like Nangong Yu because she had no weakness he could use as leverage. She had only yielded because Yinshaw had met one of the Saint Bandits, and she wanted to know what message he had left. It's someone from the Fallen Immortal Clan, said Yinshaw. The Fallen Immortal Clan? Jiang Hao was confused. He wasn't really connected to the Fallen Immortal Clan in any way. Besides Jiyu Qing, he hadn't met anyone from that clan. The Shenyuan clan should be targeting the Fallen Immortal Clan. They had a feud between them for a long time. That clan had fallen because of the Human Emperor. The Human Emperor had been from the Shenyuan clan. Although the Human Emperor represented the human race, who would really treat the entire human race as an enemy? They would fault the Shenyuan clan. Jiang Hao could understand if the Shenyuan clan was after the Fallen Immortal Clan, but he didn't understand why the Heavenly Note sect was getting involved. But he would help as much as he could because he knew that the Fallen Immortal Clan was keeping an eye on Xiao Li. Yes. We recently caught some members of the Fallen Immortal Clan. There are quite a few of them. We have kept them here for questioning, said Yinshaw. caught them for questioning? Jiang Hao found it hard to believe. It would provoke the fallen immortal clan. The Heavenly Note sect was newly established. Offending the fallen immortal clan would be dangerous. He didn't ask much. He only told her that he would observe the situation. Senior Sister Yinshaw nodded. She told him she would make the arrangements in 2 days. Jiang Hao had only been to the 5th floor of the Lawless Tower. He hadn't been to other floors. It was best to observe the person on the 5th floor. After that, Senior Sister Yinshaw left. The others were a bit nervous. They didn't know why Jiang Hao was suddenly here. I brought you some wine and meat, said Jiang Hao as he offered them to Zhuang Yuzhen. It seems that the Lawless Tower has caught many people, Zhuang Yuzhen said. Jiang Hao nodded. He had also heard about it. Suddenly, he remembered something. Didn't you say you agreed to help teach disciples in exchange for leniency? We did, but the Heavenly Note sect seems to have a lot of things on their plate. The follow-up has been delayed, said Nangongyu. Do you know much about the fallen immortal clan? Jiang Hao asked. They had also heard Senior Sister Yinshaw's words. The fallen immortal clan? Zhuang Yuzhen thought for a moment. The most important TMNG raw tnem tnin immortal seer. It aosant matter now tnin world changes, the immortal seed will bloom and bear fruit. It is a symbol of the return of the immortal clan. It's the fallen immortal clan's most important treasure. Immortal seed. Jiang Hao didn't know much about it. The fallen immortal clan is known for being stubborn, and it's basically impossible to get information from them, Nangongyu said. We have observed the fallen immortal clan for a long time. They believe in their past glory and have no other goal. That's their limitation. Everyone was surprised. That was what our senior said anyway, Nangongyu said. The one she referred to was the founder of the Saint Bandits. How can we make them speak? Mi Lingyu asked. It's simple. Talk to them about their past glory and compare it to today's fallen immortal clan. In their resentment and anticipation, they might reveal something. We tried it, said Nangongyu. However, that method only worked with some of the fanatics. Jiang Hao remembered these. King Hai Luo, this is the time to show off, said Mi Lingyu. Or is it that you know nothing? King Hai Luo looked at Mi Lingyu coldly. Do you want me to tell you about the Great Thousand God sect? For example, the Great Thousand God sect is preparing a group of undercover agents, and these undercover agents are all controlled by the Great Thousand Spirit. I know how to break free from that control. I don't believe it, Mi Lingyu said confidently. Wenju looked at King Hai Luo in surprise. Do you not believe me? King Hai Luo chuckled. Then, I won't say anything more. Let's talk about how to distinguish members of the Great Thousand God sect. How do you distinguish them? Nangongyu asked curiously. It was quite difficult to detect them. King Hai Luo smiled mysteriously. The foundation of the Great Thousand God sect is their spiritual technique. Although some people don't cultivate the Great Thousand spiritual technique, they still need to practice the methods of the Great Thousand God. As long as their foundation is based on that, their spirit will be unique. For example, that person who laughs maniacally is a member of the Great Thousand God sect. He is one of the top 3,000 members. Mi Lingyu looked at Wenju. He looked shocked. She realized that King Hai Luo was speaking the truth. Do you really think him like you? Some come here because they are caught, and others come here because they have no other choice. I am here willingly, said King Hai Luo. In this world, there is nothing greater than me. Mi Lingyu looked at Jiang Hao. King Hai Luo, your master is watching you. King Hai Luo looked so smug that it surprised Mi Lingyu. Then, he sat in a corner silently. Jiang Hao was a bit surprised. Could Hai Luo really tell who was from the Great Thousand God sect? This was quite impressive. His perception had increased, but he still couldn't tell them apart. Impossible, Wenju said coldly. The Great Thousand spiritual technique doesn't have any pattern. How could you distinguish it? It's not strange that you know who I am. It might just be a lucky guess. Lucky guess. Since you are one of the top 3,000 members, You'd know about that island, right? I entered that island and saw the 3,000 spiritual techniques floating there. Although it was just a glance, I wrote down the reversal spell for the Great Thousand Spirit technique. Hai Luo took out a tattered book from his pocket. This method of reversal is especially targeted at the Greater World Mental Energy technique. The Great Thousand God sect can never go into hiding because of this. After saying that, he handed the book to Jiang Hao. Chapter 884, Object that would bring the sect doom. Hai Luo handed the book to Jiang Hao with a wry smile. Jiang Hao was surprised. King Hai Luo really knew how to use his surroundings to his advantage. Are you giving this to me, senior? Jiang Hao took the book. He was curious about what it might have. Can it really reverse the Great Thousand Spiritual technique? Hai Luo winked. Jiang Hao was even more confused. Jiang Hao had no leverage against Hai Luo anymore. Miao Anxian probably was dead by now. King Hai Luo could leave if he wanted to. He could ask someone to pay spirit stones and release him from here. This book must be fake. There's no way something like that exists in this world. Wenju didn't believe it. He had never heard of such a thing. Mi Ling Yu also didn't believe it. How could the Great Thousand God sect allow such a lapse in judgment? But Hai Luo had said it with such confidence that it worried everyone. Jiang Hao looked at the book. The words on it were barely legible, as though someone had written it hastily. Perhaps it was written inside the lawless tower. The captives were searched when they were brought to the tower. He looked at the book briefly. It explained the origin of the Great Thousand Spiritual technique. 3,000 Tao methods, 3,000 wondrous techniques, and 3,000 spell techniques were condensed into the Great Thousand Spiritual technique. The spiritual avatar could be divided into Tao avatars, mystic avatars, and spell avatars. Each was different. If one understood the techniques, it was possible to perceive these avatars. This was just the beginning. Jiang Hao felt the power of the words. He also tried to use it. Mi Ling Yu, who had been waiting for Jiang Hao to finish, suddenly noticed a change in his breath. It was elusive and mysterious. The breath and spirit seemed to overlap. After a long time, Mi Ling Yu saw Jiang Hao close the book. His condition returned to normal. She unexpectedly felt that the Great Thousand Spiritual technique had been targeted. It was fleeting. For a moment, she felt that the person in front of her was dangerous. They saw Jiang Hao turn and leave. When everyone left, they all breathed a sigh of relief. For some reason, they felt an inexplicable pressure. What did King Hai Luo give that book to him? Why do I feel uneasy? Mi Ling Yu asked as Jiang Hao left. It seems like he read it on the spot. Is it that easy? Nangong Yu asked. King Hai Luo snorted but didn't say anything. Wenju looked to be in a daze. He had also felt it. It was truly aimed at the Great Thousand Spiritual technique. At that moment, he was thinking of ways to communicate with the members of his sect. If what King Hai Luo said was true, then this could overturn their Great Thousand God sect entirely. They must take away the book and then kill the person who knew about it. Even if it was the Heavenly King, they had to find a way to deal with him. If they couldn't kill him, they would make sure he could never spread the information. Jiang Hao walked out of the 5th floor and stopped at the stairs. King Hai Luo had not lied to him. He could indeed sense the Great Thousand Spiritual technique. It was truly extraordinary. When he looked at the book, the Heaven Lock technique and the Nameless Manual both instantly reacted. Because of that, he quickly learned the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit. He wanted to find Feng Hua. It was easier to find her with this knowledge. He hesitated and wondered whether he should hand over the book to senior sister Yinshaw. This thing was too huge. He was worried. Once the news leaked, the Heavenly Note sect would be in trouble. But if he didn't hand it over, Wenju would target him for it. It would affect the foundation of the Great Thousand God sect, and he would definitely face a catastrophe. Even the Heavenly Note sect wouldn't be able to protect him. It was better to give the notebook to the Heavenly Note sect and let them find a solution. Jiang Hao couldn't help worrying. This really could annihilate the entire sect. The Heavenly Note sect was not strong enough to face the entire Great Thousand God sect. Late that night, at the White Moon Lake, Baiji was refining her cultivation. After advancing to another realm, she stabilized her cultivation. She was different from before and wanted to make her cultivation more stable. She couldn't be impatient. However, at that moment, Yinshaw suddenly wanted to see her. Baiji disappeared from the courtyard and appeared at the lakeside. It didn't take long for Yinshaw to fly over. "Master," Yinshaw greeted her. She looked flustered. "What is it?" Baiji asked softly. Yinshaw saw that there was something different about Elder Baiji. The imposing aura made her feel her own insignificance. No one in the entire sect could go against Elder Baiji. She was a worthy sect master. "Today, I obtained something from the Lawless Tower. But this might prove very risky for the sect," said Yinshaw. She never dreamed that she would get her hands on something like this. "What is it?" Baiji was surprised. It hadn't been this dangerous when they obtained the Heaven Lock technique. "It's this." Yinshaw handed over the tattered book. Baiji took it. She looked at it briefly and frowned. "Where did this come from?" she asked. This book could bring about a disaster. King Hai Luo had it. He gave it to Jiang Hao when he visited the Lawless Tower. "Jiang Hao gave it to me," said Yinshaw. "King Hai Luo?" Baiji was surprised. They thought that the captives were very unwilling to give out any information whatsoever. "Who has seen it?" Baiji asked. "Except for junior brother Jiang, only my subordinates have seen it," Yinshaw said. "But I'm not sure if the content is accurate." Baiji lowered her head in thought. This thing was beneficial to them. They could find Feng Hua with this. But there were dangers to it. They couldn't leak this information anywhere. Otherwise, the sect would be in trouble. "Others on the 5th floor know about it?" Baiji asked. "Yes." Yinshaw nodded. "Go and check. Don't worry about those who cooperate. For those who don't, wait for my message." Yinshaw nodded. The information was very dangerous and had to be kept confidential. Once the captives from the 5th floor left, they might create problems. It would be crucial to make sure those who left the 5th floor didn't talk about it, or they needed to be silenced forever. Chapter 885. Silence. After obtaining the book, Baiji immediately sought an audience with the sect master. This matter was not trivial, and although she could understand the content of the book, she felt that it wasn't so easy to decipher everything. She felt that something was missing. So, she needed to see the sect master. Baiji stood quietly in front of the pavilion. There was no figure in the pavilion at the moment. After a while, a red figure appeared. "We found a book at the Lawless Tower," said Baiji and handed the book over. "Jiang Hao went to the 5th floor, and King Hai Luo gave it to him. It seems very important, so I had to come here and consult with you, sect master." Hong Yuye did not speak but took the book and opened it. She looked surprised. "Has anyone read it?" she asked. "Other than Jiang Hao, no one else. The people who have seen it so far couldn't read it." Baiji hesitated. "Is there an issue with the content of the book?" "There is no issue for now, but the one who wrote this book is a heavenly king from overseas. I can sense his aura. Just because he wrote it down doesn't mean others can understand it," said Hong Yuye as she closed the book. "Is it very demanding to cultivate?" Baiji asked. She didn't see any changes. "You can modify it and try. To cultivate it accurately, you'll need to find people who share the same aura," said Hong Yuye. She wrote something in the air. A new book floated in front of Baiji. "It's a bit more complicated and the effect might be a bit weaker, but the ones from the Great Thousand God sect cannot sense it." Baiji accepted the book and looked at Hong Yuye in surprise. The sect master had modified it so easily. Soon, the old book returned to Baiji. She wondered who in the sect had that kind of aura. There should be someone, but they were not in the Lawless Tower. Jiang Hao, on the other hand, could cultivate the technique. After a moment of thought, she felt that he might have already cultivated it. This matter needed further consideration. "Are there any other clues?" Hong Yuye asked. "Feng Hua is very difficult to find. Recently, members of the Great Thousand God sect have been withdrawing from the southern region, so there is currently no new information. At present, the known avatars of Feng Hua are in our sect, as well as in the Black Heaven sect. Other sects might also have them. We are still investigating it, said Baiji. Recently, the fallen immortal clan has been active. We need to recuperate from the last attack, but the Heavenly Saint sect and the Great Thousand God sect are both watching us. We are trying to capture members of the fallen immortal clan to see what they are up to so that we can prepare beforehand. Besides, there are overseas matters. There is news that the end of all things is starting to gather core members because of their previous failures. We don't know what they are planning. The end of all things was on the rise. They could gain insight into their real plan only after becoming a core member. Baiji was quite emotional. The end of all things' ultimate goal was the end of the world. They were so fanatical that nothing in their life mattered to them. Hong Yuye nodded and asked if there was anything else. Baiji talked about the matter with the Heavenly Saint sect. There were no major issues. Although Azure Mountain had support from overseas, it couldn't pose a threat to them yet. Many people from the Heavenly Gate sect died in the Heavenly Note sect last time. Some people from the Heavenly Gate sect wanted to take action. What about the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower? Hong Yuye asked. There are fewer people paying attention to the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower. It seems that everyone is waiting for the flower to bloom. Jiang Hao went out and advanced again. It seems that the person behind him is helping him advance. All the accusations against him are baseless, and so far, there is no evidence proving that he betrayed the sect, Baiji said. Hong Yuye didn't say much. It seems that the Black Heaven sect is interested in establishing friendly relations with us. It might probably be to facilitate the growth of the Grand Earth Emperor. Baiji wanted to see the sect master's reaction to the news. There's no need to be enemies with the Grand Earth Emperor. If he wants to become stronger, let him become stronger, said Hong Yuye. Baiji was surprised. What about the future? In the future, the Grand Earth Emperor might become their enemy. What about it? Hong Yuye looked at Baiji. I'm worried that the Grand Earth Emperor will attack us, Baiji said. Hong Yuye looked at the person in front of her. No need to worry about that. Baiji lowered her head and didn't say anything more. Since the sect master said so, she wouldn't worry about it. Things were clearer now. She was stronger because the sect master stood in support. The sect master's foresight was beyond her realm of understanding, after all. On the 5th floor of the Lawless Tower, Yinsha walked in with two people holding a huge mirror. Zhuang Yuzhen and others were resting in their cells. They opened their eyes when they saw the people walk in. What are you here for, little bitch? King Hai Luo sneered. Yinsha didn't care about him. She looked at Zhuang Yuzhen. The latter was surprised. He didn't understand why Yinsha was looking at him. Today, our people found a book from here, she said. Zhuang Yuzhen was surprised. He finally understood. I swear on my immortal Tao that I won't mention anything about what I have seen or heard today to anyone. Otherwise, my Tao will break, and my soul will shatter, he said. Yinsha turned to look at the people behind her. They nodded. Then, she looked at Nangong Yu. At that moment, Nangong Yu understood. The information Hai Luo had given was true. Otherwise, the Lawless Tower wouldn't be taking such measures to keep them quiet. She took the oath and promised not to tell anyone. Mi Lingyu knew this would happen, so she obliged as well. Finally, Yinsha approached Wenju. I also swear by my Tao, Wenju said seriously. I, Wenju, swear by my immortal Tao not to mention anything about what I have seen or heard today. Yinsha looked at the two people behind her. They frowned and shook their heads. Yinsha nodded and left. After a while, another group of people came in. They took Wenju away. The only instruction they received was to kill this person. Wenju had no immortal Tao and had tried to lie his way out of the immortal oath. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,